Hi everyone, I'm Ellie, founder of Code of the Future, and today I'm going to be starting the Pandas tutorial series for beginners in Python. So firstly, what exactly is Pandas? So Pandas is a library that is found in Python, similar to other libraries like NumPy or Matplotlib. It's essentially a Python library that allows you to analyse datasets, so you can do a whole range of different things with datasets, but essentially it involves working heavily with datasets, manipulating the data, doing crazy calculations with the data, finding different things within the data sets, and it's honestly such an incredible library, and I'm so excited to share with you what you can do with it and just teach you all about it in this tutorial series. So the main functions of Pandas are analysing, exploring and manipulating data in data sets. So those are the main features of Pandas, but not just limited to those features. There are a whole range of different things that you can do with Pandas, and it is just an incredible library and very handy if you want to go into the world of data analytics. So if you're thinking of maybe going into a career with data analytics, this is definitely a library in Python that I would highly recommend you learn, or just anything in general, whether that's plotting graphs. Data sets come in handy for a whole range of different things. I used data sets on my internship, which was a programming internship with the UK Space Agency. So data sets, just data in general is everywhere. It's completely around us, so having that knowledge of understanding how you can manipulate data sets using this Pandas library is so wonderful to have, and it'll definitely look great on your CV. So essentially the library itself allows you to understand the statistics behind data sets, which is really cool, and I'm excited to show you more on this tutorial series. So in this tutorial series I'll be showing you how you can use something else like Excel and incorporate that into Python, which is really cool and really helpful for analysing data sets. And I'll also be showing you at the end how you can start plotting with Matplotlib and Pandas, which is so cool, and I'm so excited to show you more about it. So I guess we better get started on this tutorial series. Okay, so as usual I'll put my glasses on and I'll move you onto the screen. Okay, awesome. So we are in PyCharm. I've created a Python file called Pandas tutorial, and I'm just going to say Pandas tutorial series. Exclamation marks to add a bit of emphasis on how cool this library is. So I guess the first thing that I'm going to show you is how you can import and install Pandas. Okay, so the first way that you can install Pandas is by going to your terminal and just typing in pip3 install Pandas, and if you press enter it will hopefully install Pandas as needed. Okay, awesome. So mine is currently downloading Pandas, yours will be doing the exact same thing if you do this. What's worth mentioning is instead of pip3 install Pandas, you may just have to write pip install Pandas. It completely depends on your operating system, so whether you're on Linux, Windows or Mac. I'm on a Mac, so I typed pip3 install Pandas, and it is now installing Pandas for me, ready to use. So once it's done that, you've got Pandas installed. Another way of installing Pandas, if you're a little bit confused with how pip works, you can actually install it into PyCharm itself. So the way that we do that is you will go up to PyCharm Preferences, you'll go into your project, so mine is Code of the Future, you'll click Python Interpreter, and then you'll just click this plus arrow, this plus button here, click install, and all you'll type is Pandas, and it will be down here, and then all you do is you click install package, it will install the package, and then you'll click OK. So once you have done either of those two things, what you will say is import Pandas, and what will happen is no error will come up. If you haven't imported them, so if you did this before installing them, you would have a red line under here because Python is like, well, I don't know this library, we don't have it imported, or we don't have it installed, so I'm not familiar with it. But once you've installed it and imported it and everything, it will look exactly like this. Now, something that I like to do as a shortcut is import Pandas as PD. So what this means is when you start to do things with Pandas, you don't have to write pandas dot whatever. You can simply just put PD, and then it will do exactly what you want it to do. So it's just a little bit of a shortcut. You don't have to, but this way, I'd highly recommend it because I will be using this version when I start coding. So I'll just be using the shortcut PD for Pandas. Okay, so now we have imported and installed Pandas, we are ready to start doing some coding. Awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating my own data set, and we'll just let's call it my data set. And the way that we create our own data set is by having squiggly brackets. I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to put all of the relevant information in here for my data set, so everything that I need. and this is just the standard of how you can create your own data set in Python. So my example, and I'm going to write it up here, so let's say we have a vehicle company and they sell, or let's say 3 different types of vehicles, and they record how many of each vehicle is in stock. So what we will do is we will start by creating a string. We'll call it vehicle. We will put a colon and we will create our own list, and inside this list this will be the number of, you know, the specific vehicles. So let's say we've got car, bicycle, can't spell bicycle, there we go, motorbike, and I could add another in here, we could say truck, I guess. We'll have 4. So there we go, we've defined vehicle, we've got the 4 different types of vehicle this company has, and now what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, okay, how many of those are in stock? So we've got in stock, and I'm going to write numbers in here. So let's say we've got, I don't know, 10, let's say 20 cars, or maybe 10 cars, 20 bicycles, 15 motorbikes, and let's say 5 trucks. Okay, awesome. That here should have a comma, I forgot about that. So essentially whenever you have a data set, you will start with, I suppose, the column header. So here we have vehicle, we specify the vehicles in this list, we will then separate the next header with a comma, and we'll say, okay, in stock, and then corresponding we'll say, okay, there are 10 cars, 20 bicycles, 15 motorbikes, and 5 trucks. You can add another thing in here, and you know, it could be how healthy they are, how old they are, but I'm going to omit that just from this kind of just from this code here, just while we're, you know, understanding things to begin with. Okay, so what we can do now is we can start incorporating pandas, and we can say, okay, let's create our own data frame. So I'm going to say my data frame is pd.dataframe, and inside here I'm going to say my dataset. Okay, awesome. So there we go, we've created a data frame. This is the pandas. So pandas is creating a data frame. Notice we have pd because we've imported pandas as pd. If you didn't have this as pd here, you'd simply just put pandas and it would do the exact same thing. So my data frame, we've created a data frame from this data set, and now when I print my data frame, notice what happens. Okay, so we'll run this. Awesome, look at that. So we have our own data frame there. We have the vehicle, which are run down here. We have how many of those are in stock. They're all down here. And then we just have an index here. So this is the 0th element, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, kind of like with lists. And I'll be showing you how you can change these on the side in a moment. Awesome. So there we go. That is creating our very own data frame. How awesome is that? You can, you know, as I said, add some extra features into here and manipulate this data frame, and Python literally produces this specific data frame. How cool is that? So I'm just going to hashtag some text into here and explain what I mean. So I'll talk through it. So datasets in Python are multiple dimensional tables, and what that means is they're not just, you know, a 1-by-1 table. It means you can have different dimensions, so you can have different elements in here. The multi-dimensional tables, and that's what's really, really cool, is you can actually have so many different features in a specific data set. So the multiple dimensional tables, which you write as pd.dataframe, which is what we've written here, and the data frame is essentially the whole table of data, so it's everything we have here, so this whole data set. And what I will be exploring later is something known as series, and series are essentially just, let's say, this section here, so just like one line of a data frame, and we'll be exploring that later. But for now I'm going to be showing you how you can recall elements in a data frame. Very, very easy. So we've got this my data frame, and what you can say is my data frame, which is the data frame that we have here, you can say .lock, and then we're going to put an index, so let's say 0. Now I will show you what happens when we print this. I'll run. Okay, so this is what we printed before. This is the entire data frame, and then this section here we have, notice that we have the first element in the data frame. So we have vehicle is the car, and how many are in stock are 10. So we've got 10. Awesome. And here this is just basically saying, okay, the name is 0 because that's what it is when we write here, so 0, and it's just an object. So I'll just say here this returns the first row in the data frame, And similarly, we can extend that further. We can say this returns the first and let's say third row. And the way that we do that is I'm just going to copy what we've done before, put it in here, and you just put a comma in here and the next row that you want to produce, so 2. So it'll produce hopefully motorbike and 15, and also car and 10, because we have 0 and 2 defined. So I'll just run this, see what happens. Oh, okay, so we've got an error, and that is because I haven't put extra brackets around here, and that's what we need to do. Okay, I'll just run that again. There we go. So it's produced 0 and 2, so 0 and 2. I can put a 1 in there, and let's hope it'll produce 0 and 1. Awesome. How many elements have we got in it? We've got 3, so I could put 3 in here and it will produce the final. So there we go. Awesome. That's how you return the first, and I will just say here 2 for the third row. Now what you can do is you can take a slice. So I'll say we can take a slice, and all that we do there is, I'll just copy this again, is we say 0 to 2, and that will take a slice from the 0th element to the second. So I'll show you what happens. It will do a slice between 0 and 2. There we go. 0 and 2. Awesome. So that's how we have set up a data frame, and how we also locate specific rows within a data frame. Honestly, really, really cool, and definitely something that I enjoy a lot with Pandas. Okay, so we have this data frame, and when we run the data frame, notice, you know, when I scroll to the top, we have these 0, 1, 2, 3, which may seem a bit, you know, confusing. I suppose not too confusing because it indexes them, but what we can actually do is we can rename them. So I'm going to start by, creating a new data set, and I'm just going to call it, we'll call it Dataset 2, and squiggly brackets as usual, and I will say, okay, let's make a list of how many cars there are on, let's say, Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, let's say 3 days a week. So we've got number of cars, let's say there's 20 on day 1, there's 15 on day 2, and let's say there's 10 on day 3. So, well, let's say maybe 12, and that's because cars are getting sold. And then let's do bicycles, and okay, so let's say, how many bicycles did we have to begin with? We had 20. Okay, I've changed these numbers around slightly. Let's say we had 25 bicycles. On the Tuesday, let's say we had 23, and then on the following day we had 15. Okay, so I've got this data set. Now if I just do the usual, which is, let's say data frame, I'll call it data frame 2 is pd.dataframe, and we'll call it dataset 2 because that's our new data set. And if I was to print this data frame 2 and run it, okay, so it's done it. There we go. Awesome. Now what I'm going to be showing you is how we can change these 0, 1 and 2 to things like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And it's very, very easy. The way that you do it is inside this pd.dataframe, we're just going to put index equals, and we're going to label what we want. So let's say Monday, Tuesday, and it may go off the screen, but it's okay, Wednesday. Awesome. So now if I was to, oh, there we go. Now if I was to run this, look at that. There we go. That's Monday. That's how many cars and bicycles there were on Monday, how many on Tuesday, and how many on Wednesday. How awesome is that? So that's how we rename and change the index of each data set, of each row in a data set, which is so cool and very, very nice as well when you want to start understanding, you know, what days are what. Let's say you have, you know, a whole list of 10 days and you want to label them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday like we just have done. Very handy to be able to do that. Now the awesome thing with this is we can actually locate, so we can locate elements in the new data frame using their kind of renamed index. So what I can say is, okay, well, let's print dataframe2.lock, and I'm going to say, okay, well, I want the results from Wednesday, and I'll run this. And notice that, there we go. So this here is from Wednesday, this just section here. Above that is the previous, what I printed here for the data frame. But here we have the Wednesday. So we have cars are 12, bicycles are 15, and the name is Wednesday. So if I change this to Tuesday, whoa, So if I change this to Tuesday, you would expect to get things from Tuesday. Awesome, there we go, we do. So that is a handy way of being able to rename indexes in your data set, so relabel them so to whatever you want, and then also being able to recall them through this .loc, through this .loc in Pandas. How awesome is that? Okay, awesome. So now we've spoken or looked at, now we've looked at data frames, let's look at series. So a series is very simple, and we'll call it, let's call it series is, let's say, a list. So let's say we want, I don't know, the list of cars again, so let's say this here, so 2015 12. Awesome. Now what we do is we can say, in fact I'll call this A, and I'll say, okay, now our series is going to be pd.series A, and if I print this new series that we've created, notice what happens. Okay, cool. So we have this here, we have a series, and it produces, the index again, from 0 to 2, because that's how many elements we've got. 0, 1, 2, so that's 3, and it's produced them here. Awesome. So we've created our very own series, and as I said before, a series is very similar to kind of a row in a data set. Now what we can do is we can also locate elements. The room is quite dark in here, I think the lighting has changed outside, sorry about that. So we can also locate elements within a series. Very simply, we'll just say print series, and it's very similar to a list. We'll put the index that we want, so 0 in here, and hopefully that will return the first index, which is 20, and there we have 20. How cool is that? So we can return specific elements from a series. So notice that this here isn't the series, this is the list that we have, so A is the list, and we can convert that into the series, and then we can locate specific elements. So let's say I want so we had the 0th element, which is the first, and then 1 will correspond to 15, so if I run this, it will hopefully run 15. Awesome, there we go, it runs 15. How cool is that? Now I'll just put similar to data frames, we can also relabel series. So here, where are we? let's just change, I'll copy this, and I'll say, okay, let's change this, let this be B, and we'll just change the values in here. So 21, I'll say 10, and we'll keep it 12, and let's say we've got this new series. Okay, I'll call it series 2. Okay, so in here we do the exact same thing, and we say index, and we list what we want. So let's say we want Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday again, and this will relabel the series. So if I run this, there we go. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So this is, let's say, Monday 21 cars, Tuesday 10 cars, and Wednesday 12. Let's say 2 people brought their cars back in after Tuesday. Awesome. And finally, like we did previously, we can locate elements using their new labelled kind of index, as it were. So we'll say, okay, series 2, and I'm going to say, well, I want to find out the value from Monday, and I'm going to print this. Print, we'll run this. Awesome, 21 comes up, because that is exactly what we have for Monday, and also what you see here, Monday 21. Cool. Okay, so now we have explored series and data frames. We're going to import Excel. Now this is so cool, I honestly love this. So what I actually have here, I have 2 data sets. So we've got .cv here, and I've done them through Excel. So they're just down here on my screen, we have 2. So this is the second one that we'll be using, and this has just got some empty kind of blank screens in here, blank entries, and this is the second one here, which is completely full. So we'll be using these 2 today. Okay, so the way that we get Python and Pandas to read a specific data frame, so these data frames we have here, we have a data set, my data and my data too. The way that we get, Pandas to read a CSV file, and I'm using CSV because it's a lot easier, just as a beginner it's easier to understand how CSV works. We will say df for data frame for short, we'll say pd dot read CSV, and we'll put the CSV that we have. So I think it was my data, I think .csv, there we go. And if I was to print this df now, you will notice, there we go, look at that. It produces the exact data frame that I have. So my data set, which is this one here, it produces this, but in Python. Awesome. So there we go. Now what's cool with this is we can also locate elements from within this file. So let's start locating rows. So we'll say, okay, df.lock, and we'll say we want the 0th element. So let's say this will return the first row. Okay, we'll run this. And I didn't print it, I need to print it for it to come up, so we'll run this. There we go. So it prints the first row that we have, which apparently all the cars, bicycles and motorbikes and trucks all have 100. Awesome. And then similarly we can say, so let's return different rows. So the way that we do that is I'm going to copy this above. We're going to put the other one we want. So let's say we want this row here, number 3, and I'll just put brackets around it, which is what we need. I'll print this and hopefully it'll return 0 and 3. There we go. Awesome. Produces 0 and 3. And we can also take a slice. So I'll copy it again, and in here you just put a colon and to wherever you want your slice to go. We'll run this, and there we go. It's sliced between 0 and 3. That is so cool. Honestly, I love Pandas. It's one of my favourite libraries. There we go. So we've done, imported a data set, and we've also located specific rows within this data set, which is just so cool. Now something else to mention is we can use the head and tail operation in Pandas, and what this does is if I say print df.head, this will produce, so I'll just put, this will return the first 5 rows. Okay, so if I print this and run it, notice that the first 5 rows appear. Now this will return the first 7 rows. So essentially we'll copy this .head, and whatever value you put into this head argument, that will be how many rows it will return, obviously within the range of rows you have in your data set. So if I was to run this, notice 7 rows come up because I've specifically said I want 7. Awesome. So now I'll say this will return the last 5 rows, and as you guessed it, it's df.tail open bracket. We'll run this, and there we go. It produces the last 5 rows in my data set. And then we can say this will return the last, let's say, 3 rows, and all you do is you just put an argument into here, so 3. Okay, awesome. So I run this, there we go, produces the last 3. How cool is that? Now the final thing I'm going to show you is, let's retrieve some information about the data set. And all we're going to say is print df.info, and this will produce the information about the given data set. So here we go. This is kind of so this here is the information that we get about the data set, and there's a whole range of different things. We have memory usage, that's how many memories it will take to kind of store this given data set that we have. It gives you the type, and also here, which is really handy, it tells you the non-null count, so that's how many entries are empty. So notice when I move back on here, none of the entries are empty, and I'll be exploring that later, what happens when they are empty. So none of them are empty. We have kind of a typical information that it says there's 4 columns, which is true. We have 4 columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it says 9 entries, 0 to 8, and also just says there that it's a data frame. So info is very handy. It can give you straight away, you can see straight away whether the mismatching, so if certain elements have different non-null counts, so if some have empty sets and all sorts of things like that. So info is very handy if you just want to have a summary of your data set to begin with, and I find it really useful. Okay, so now we've looked at let's say an Excel data set with full entries. Let's explore a data set that has, I suppose, entries missing. And for that, I'll pop up my dataset 2. So this is my dataset 2 here, and notice that we have, here we have an element missing, here we have an element missing, and all in this row here, all of them are missing. Okay. So first thing I'm going to open this. So we're going to say df.to is pd.read CSV, and it's going to be my, I think it's my data, is it my data2.csv. There we go. So I can print df2, and notice that here we have NaN, and that means nothing is in this specific row here. So we have no value there, we have no value there, and up here we have no value. Now this could be something with the system could be wrong. Let's say when they were recording how many bicycles came in on this day, there was a glitch and someone forgot to count them, and so there's empty values, and that happens in data analysis all the time. Sometimes we do end up just having empty columns and empty entries, and that just happens. So now what I'm going to show you is how you can overcome those empty entries. Before I do that, I'm just going to utilize, so we're just going to utilize the .info kind of section of pandas. So if I say df2.info and I print this, I'll just show you what happens with the whole empty values. So when we produce the kind of info, we notice here that there's a mismatch of empty values. So here this has less empty values, this has 7 entries that are non-null, and we know there are 9 entries altogether. So what we know here is in this kind of row, in this column, there are 2 that are empty, because we have 9 entries altogether and there are only 7 that aren't empty. Okay, so that's just a little side note. Now we can drop the rows that have empty entries in, and the way that we do that, we'll assign a new, so complete df, so data frame, is df2.drop na, and that will drop all of the kind of NaN entries we had, so empty entries. And I'll print this completed df, and notice that when we print it, okay, we have, okay, I don't need a d, it's complete df, not completed. Notice when we do so, we have less entries, but they're all full again. And this is handy. It means that you can completely omit those sections, and it means that you won't have, empty entries, which is really, really handy. Now, instead of completely removing rows, we can replace them with a given value. So this is something that I did in my internship, and essentially what happened is sometimes you will have points that are completely anomalies, and what we do is, instead of taking those empty sets and making them look weird on graphs, have like these gaps, you can set them to a really low value, and then you can see that that's an anomaly. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to say df.to, we're going to say fill na, we're going to say we'll fill all of the empty columns with the number 10, and we're going to say in place is true, and that means that they will fill. Now we'll say print df2, if I can type right, click run, and now notice that this whole entry here that was empty, row 6, now all has 10 in there, and here number 10, and here number 10. So that's a way of replacing all of the empty rows. Really, really handy and just really useful. Let's say instead of doing the entire row, we just want to do one specific column. So let's say cars. So let's say we just want to replace the entries, or the empty entries, in the car column. Okay, now the way that we do that is we'll say df2 cars dot fill na as above. We'll say 130, let's say, for example, and I'll say in place is true. Now I'm just going to hashtag out this above just so it doesn't interfere with this. I will print this new data frame, we will run. Okay, notice that where are cars are here, there are cars here, and this entire entry 0, 0, empty, and then for cars we have 130, and that's because it has replaced every empty cell in cars with 130. So let's do trucks now. We'll replace that with trucks because trucks have 2 empty cells. So let's run, and notice that where the NaN were, we have the 130. Awesome, amazing. So what you can do there is you can take empty entries in a specific column and replace it with any value you want, which is really handy, especially because when you start plotting, if it's an empty set, if it's an empty entry, there will be mismatched, your graphs will be mismatched, there'll be kind of gaps. Whereas if you put it to a really low value, say like 1, you will see that that is an anomaly and it's kind of out of the way. Just makes your graph look a little bit nicer than if there were gaps in it, because it looks too inconsistent. So now we've seen how you can input specific values. Let's say you want to find out the mean. So let's say you want the mean, mode and median of kind of given columns, and then you can use them to replace the empty entries. So the way that we'll do that is quite simply we'll assign our mean to be df2, so our data frame 2. Let's say we want to find the, let's say cars, let's say we want to find the mean of the car entry. We will say dot mean, and let's say we'll print this mean value here. Run it. Okay, so there we go. We have that the mean of the car entry here is 76. So let's say we want to replace this value now with our new mean. So let's just copy this, and I will change this to cars, and we're going to fill this with our mean, and then we'll run it. So hopefully cars will now be filled with this new mean value, which may change. Do we have 76? 76. Awesome, there we go, we've got 76. And the trucks are still the same, 130. Amazing. So that's how you do the mean. So I'll just put here mean and replacing the entries with this mean value. Now let's do the mode. Now the mode is somewhat similar, so we'll say mode is df2. Let's say we want cars, we'll say dot mode, but the final thing that we need to add is just a little index in here, so 0, and this just means that this just means that it will return a given value. It won't return something that's not an integer. So if I print the mode for cars, and we'll run this, see what happens. Okay, 50, so it says the mode is 50, cool, and now we can do the median, and the median, very similar, median, df2, let's do cars again, we'll say dot median, open brackets, and we'll print the median. Okay, let's run this, there we go, 76, there we go, 76, awesome, that is so cool. So we have figured out how to do the mean, mode and median in Pandas, which is so cool, and then I'll just show you finally we can simply replace an index by doing the following. So we'll take the data frame df2, we'll say lock, we will then say, okay, let's say we want row 6 and we want it for our cars. We can say, well, let's let that equal to, let's say we want that to be 4,000. Very random, but let's say we want it to be 4,000. Now if I was to print df2 and I run this, notice that element 6 on cars has 4,000 in it. So this is very handy. This just allows you to say, okay, maybe if you know that there's one empty entry in your data and you know exactly where it is, you can replace it with any value you want instead of having to remove the entire row or, you know, do a whole range of different things. This is just a really handy way of taking one index, one specific entry, and replacing it with a value that you want. Okay, awesome. So finally, I'm going to show you how you can incorporate Matplotlib with Pandas. So here I'm just going to import Matplotlib. So import Matplotlib, and we're going to do .pyplot as plt, and that just allows you to draw, essentially. I would put import at the top, but just for the purpose of this, I'm just going to do it here so you remember that you definitely need to import it. So import Matplotlib as pyplot, and all we're going to say, very simply, we're going to do the first data frame we have because there's no empty, values. We're going to say df.plot plt.show. Okay, so now when I run this, let's hope it will plot. Awesome, look at that, how cool is that? So there we go, so this is the first data frame, and this was, let me find it, it's this one here, where there are no kind of empty values, so there's no mismatch. And this is it here, so we see that, okay, so this is, it's indexed here, we have all different colours, It's labelled here with different colours. So we've noticed that actually bicycles were orange. We noticed that the most amount of bicycles were sold in the time. Then it was cars, and then motorbikes, and then trucks. So this is a really cool way of being able to plot a data set. I'll show you what happens if I was to plot the data set that's missing, has missing entries and whole range of different things. I think it may be a bit, yeah, this is what I will do is I will just get rid of this replacing with 4,000 because I think that kind of changed it slightly, so I'll rerun this. Okay, here we go. So look at this. Now this, obviously these spikes here are for when we change, you know, the values to 130 to show that there are anomalies, but what you'll notice is here where the cars were, we replaced this value here with its kind of mean value, and it's just so much more consistent here than seeing these random lines that just don't match up. So it's very handy to be able to do all of this stuff that we've done prior, where we've replaced elements and replaced entries, because it just makes the plot look so much nicer than these empty kind of graphs here, these empty sections here. So yeah, much nicer doing it this way. So it's much nicer to just do the you know, the first plot that's full, it's got all the entries in it, because you see a very nice pattern, and it's just awesome to be able to plot. So I'll just put here, this will plot the data set, or the data frame df. I'll just put as defined above. Okay, awesome. So that has been the full tutorial series on pandas. We have explored a lot of things and they're just all so cool, and now hopefully if you go away and start learning a bit more about pandas, then you'll really enjoy it. I'm hoping to add a few more videos on this channel, you know, with this series, and show you what else you can do with pandas, but they will probably be in the future. I just want to release a whole range of different videos and just see which people enjoy the most, rather than putting loads and loads of effort into one specific area. I want to do little tasters of everything and see what people enjoy the most. But if you want more about pandas, then definitely let me know and I'll release some more videos on those. So that has been the video today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, then please give this video a big thumbs up, and if you want to support the channel even further, then hit the subscribe button and the bell notification with it so you don't miss out on any future videos, and also check out the donation link in the description of this video. But for now, I will see you all in the next video.